Have you ever stopped to think about how different childhood was just a few decades ago? Imagine being 8 years old and leaving the house after breakfast with nothing but a bicycle, a few dollars in your pocket, and instructions to be home before the streetlights came on. No cell phone, no GPS, no constant supervision, just freedom. For millions of American kids growing up in the 1970s, that wasn't unusual at all. In fact, it was normal. Back then, children explored neighborhoods on their own, rode in cars without seatbelts, bought products that would shock modern parents, and spent entire days doing things that would likely trigger phone calls to authorities today. The 1970s were a unique time in American history, a period when communities were close-knit, safety standards were still evolving, and childhood looked dramatically different from what we know today. Some of these memories bring smiles. Others might make you wonder how anyone survived. Today, we're taking a trip back in time to explore 10 things 1970s American kids did that would be illegal, heavily restricted, or simply unimaginable today. Let's step back into a typical American neighborhood of the 1970s. Childhood in the 1970s was built on freedom. Parents expected children to be independent, solve problems on their own, and spend much of their time outdoors. Communities often felt safer, and many adults assumed that children would naturally learn responsibility through experience. But as safety research improved, laws changed, and society became more aware of risks, many everyday childhood activities disappeared. Some changes saved lives. Others changed the very nature of growing up. Let's begin with something that almost every child experienced. The first thing was riding in cars without seatbelts. Picture a family station wagon heading down the highway on a summer vacation. Kids are stretched out in the back playing games, reading comic books, or even sleeping on blankets. Some are sitting on the floor. Others are bouncing around the rear cargo area. For much of the 1970s, this was completely normal. Although seatbelts existed, many states did not require their use. Children often rode completely unrestrained. As crash research improved during the late 20th century, it became clear that seatbelts dramatically reduced injuries and deaths. States gradually introduced mandatory seatbelt laws and child restraint requirements. Today, allowing young children to ride unrestrained can result in fines, legal penalties, and serious consequences for parents. Another common sight involved children riding in the back of pickup trucks. Imagine a group of kids heading to a baseball game or a family picnic. Instead of sitting inside the vehicle, they're riding in the open truck bed, laughing as the wind rushes past. In many parts of America, especially rural communities, this was ordinary. Parents rarely thought twice about it. However, accidents involving passengers being thrown from truck beds led to increasing safety concerns. Many states later restricted or prohibited children from riding this way. Today, in many areas, transporting children in the open bed of a moving pickup truck is illegal or heavily regulated. Then there was the famous go-anywhere bicycle culture. A 10-year-old could leave home after breakfast and travel miles away without any adult supervision. Children crossed neighborhoods, visited friends, explored woods, and spent entire afternoons beyond the sight of their parents. The expectation was simple: come home before dinner. The freedom that defined 1970s childhood has become much more limited. Speaking of freedom, many children regularly bought cigarettes for adults. A child might walk into a local convenience store carrying a handwritten note from a parent and leave with a pack of cigarettes. Store owners knew the family and saw nothing unusual about the transaction. Smoking was deeply woven into American culture during the 1970s. Cigarette advertising appeared everywhere, and public awareness of health risks was still developing. Over time, growing evidence about smoking-related diseases led to stricter regulations. Today, tobacco sales to minors are prohibited, and allowing children to purchase tobacco products would violate the law in many places. Another surprising activity involved lawn darts. On a warm summer evening, families gathered in backyards playing games. One popular game featured large metal-tipped darts thrown through the air toward targets on the ground. To children, it seemed harmless fun. Unfortunately, accidents occasionally resulted in serious injuries. Safety concerns grew throughout the 1970s and 1980s, leading to restrictions and eventual bans on traditional lawn darts in the United States. Modern toy safety standards would never allow many products that children used back then. The next example might be the most shocking of all: playing around active construction sites. Empty lots, unfinished buildings, and construction zones often became giant playgrounds for adventurous kids. Children climbed dirt piles, explored partially built structures, and created imaginary worlds among stacks of lumber and machinery. Adults viewed this as harmless exploration. Today, construction sites are tightly secured because of liability concerns and safety regulations. Another everyday reality involved riding bicycles without helmets. In the 1970s, helmets were rarely seen outside of organized sports. Children raced down steep hills, built homemade ramps, and performed dangerous stunts with little protective equipment. It wasn't considered reckless, it was simply childhood. Medical research later demonstrated the importance of head protection in preventing traumatic injuries. Many communities introduced helmet requirements, particularly for younger riders. Although helmet laws vary, parents today face far greater expectations regarding bicycle safety. Let's move from bicycles to something found in nearly every American home. Many children had easy access to dangerous household chemicals. Kids frequently handled these substances while helping with chores or working on projects. As accidental poisonings became better understood, manufacturers introduced child-resistant packaging, warning labels, and stricter safety standards. Today, failing to properly secure hazardous chemicals around children could lead to serious legal consequences if an injury occurred. Another activity that was common involved using fireworks with minimal supervision. On summer holidays, children often lit sparklers, firecrackers, and other fireworks under only casual adult observation. In some communities, kids handled items that would be restricted to adults today. As injuries and fires became more widely documented, many states strengthened regulations regarding fireworks sales and use. Modern safety laws are far stricter than those of the 1970s. Finally, many children were left home alone at ages that would surprise modern parents. A 12-year-old babysitting younger siblings was not unusual. Some children came home from school to empty houses every afternoon while parents worked. The concept of the latchkey kid became a defining symbol of the era. Economic changes, rising numbers of working parents, and cultural expectations all contributed to this reality. Today, some states have minimum age guidelines or laws regarding when children may be left unsupervised. In certain situations, leaving young children alone could be considered neglect. Looking back, it's easy to see why so many people remember the 1970s with a mixture of nostalgia and amazement. It was a time when childhood often meant extraordinary freedom. Kids learned independence through experience, spent countless hours outdoors, and enjoyed adventures that seem almost unbelievable today. At the same time, many of the laws and regulations that later emerged were created for good reasons. Improved safety standards helped reduce injuries and protect children from preventable harm. Neither era was perfect. The 1970s offered freedom that many people miss. Modern childhood provides protections that previous generations never had. Perhaps the real lesson is that every generation tries to give its children the best life it can using the knowledge available at the time. And for those who grew up in the 1970s, the memories remain unforgettable. Long summer days, endless adventures, and a kind of childhood freedom that has largely faded into American history.